Welcome to .NET MVC, which is a server-side framework for developing websites. A good thing that you might want to do before you jump in and start learning MVC is to go refresh your memory of HTML, CSS, and possibly even JavaScript jQuery. If you don't know those skills, you'll be fine, especially if you could at least brush back up on your HTML. The jQuery is something you probably could just pick up on the fly as needed. In order to create an application in .NET MVC, you'll want to click File, New Project, and then you'll choose the ASP.NET MVC4 web application. There are other versions of the .NET framework out there, especially in Visual Studio 2013, but for this video we're going to use the 2012 and the MVC4. After you select that option, you can drop down and change the name of the project. I'll actually type in My First Web. And then click on the OK button. .NET will then display a screen asking you what type of project you'd like to make. There's different types of .NET projects to get you started working in creating a website. The first choice is to choose an empty template. This simply says create the basics of a website but don't put anything in it. It will go and create your basic structure of that website, including a properties folder, reference folder, app data, app start, a controllers folder, models folder, views, which will contain the web.config file, which is similar to what we're used to using with the app.config in WPF, a global ASAX file, packages config, and web config. However, in all those other folders, our MVC, we have no real files to do anything with the website. Remember, MVC stands for Model, View, and Controller. The model is the actual representation of the database structure. The view is the GUI interface, and the controller links the model with the view. The basic website option says that it will go ahead and expand or extend the empty template by adding a content and a script folder, and also a shared folder. One other file it adds is the bundleconfig.cs file, which is used for bundling and minimization. This is a good option if you just plan to create everything from scratch. The next choice is the Intranet Application. This extends the basic template by actually adding two controllers, an account controller and a home controller, and that has all the logic and functionality along with the actions and views. In this template, it actually gives the user the ability to register, to log in, to change a password, so it's the basic functionality of security for accessing a website. That template is used usually to start a normal web project. The next object is the Intranet Application. That template is similar to the Internet Application template, except that it's pre-configured to use with Windows-based authentication. That's a good option if you plan to create an intranet website. The next template is the Mobile Application. This template is optimized for mobile devices and actually works well with an item we call RWD, Responsive Web Development. That's where you can create a website, and it's smart enough to determine whether or not you're working on a tablet, a phone, a basic browser, and tries to resize the content to fit for that device. The last template we'll talk about is the Web API. This is another variation of the Internet Application, but it includes a pre-configured Web API controller .asp.NET API that allows you to easily build HTTP services. We're not going to worry about it then in our class, and instead just focus on building basic internet applications. Each of these templates will accomplish the same goal and help you build a web application. But each one determines how much you want Microsoft Visual Studio to generate source code for you. We're going to go ahead and choose Intranet Application for the most part in our class. The next thing you need to determine is what view engine you want to use to create your views. We're going to go ahead and choose Razor. At this point, it doesn't really matter, but I've seen that Razor seems to be the upcoming standard default for creating those views. The last thing is you could also choose to create a unit test project. We're going to leave that unchecked, but you can actually go back later on and add a unit test project to your website. So once you've selected Internet Application and you have the view engine as Razor, click OK. Visual Studio will then start to generate source code for you for the basic website. Let's go ahead and test the project and see if it works. You can do that by running the project by clicking on Debug, Start Debugging, pressing F5, or in my case, I'm going to click on the green arrow that says Google Chrome. .NET will then compile the application and display it on your browser. Here's the actual website that's been created. It has some basic functionality. For instance, I can click on the login button. It'll bring up a login page. I can click on the register link and it'll bring up a register account. I can click on Home, About, Contact. What it's trying to do is just giving the basic structure for a common website. Go ahead and close that browser and then make sure that you stop running the application. You can stop the running of the application by clicking on the red square box which says Stop Debugging. This will take you back to the source code that was generated by Microsoft Visual Studio. Now let's take a look at the code. If you look in your Solution Explorer, you'll see some of the following files. We have two controllers that were created for us. First of all, we have the home controller.cs. Just like your WPF projects, the .cs file contains the C# source code to perform the logic within the application. Here's the source code for the home controller. Remember, a controller says, I'm the interface between the model and the view. So this home controller says that it does the following. It's a home controller of type controller. And then it has some methods inside of it, some action result methods that do certain things. One of them is called index, another's about, another's called contact. Within that, we have an object called a view bag. And then we work with the message. And then when it's all done, it simply says return the view object. We also have the account controller. If you scroll down in your Solution Explorer, you'll see that we have a models folder, and there's actually a model for account models. Remember, our model says it defines the structure for the data. This is very similar to what we saw in our WPF, where we actually had DB context objects that we would work with. And within the DB context object, you had a DB context constructor method. And then you had a DB set, which specified a name of a set and a table name associated with that set. And then we have our automatic properties to work with that table. So we have a table called user profile, which will be created with a DB set object, but we'll refer to it as a user profiles. In other words, it pluralized the name of that DB set. Other files that were generated for us are views. Here's the home view. Within the home view, we have an index.cs HTML file. A quick look at it makes it look like it's just simply HTML file. We have a section with some divs, a header group, paragraphs, ordered list with list items. It looks a lot just like the HTML you're used to using. However, it's in a Razor syntax, which you'll understand a little bit later on in this course. So take some time and just browse through your Solution Explorer and take a look at all the different files that were created. Look at the account view. There's all the different views associated in that account view directory that were created automatically for you. Here's the login view. In that login, we actually specify that we have a field set, since we're going to actually work with some fields, and an ordered list for the username, the password, and whether or not they need to be remembered. Once again, you'll understand all this a little bit later on, but just take the time and start looking at everything. So there you have it. You've created your first website in MVC.NET. In this case, we've just provided a nice foundation to start helping us to get a website up and then have the ability to go back and make changes as we need it. The next videos will continue this process and allow you to modify your website.